Welcome friends to another r/IDontWorkHereLady video. If you don't work here, but you still want to help out, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Mr. Slaggle. I am still laughing. First, I was just a witness. Second, no Karens were involved, I think. Setting, local pet store, cat food aisle. A very tall, 6'6" to 6'8", young, flamboyantly dressed black man walking down the aisle with his male companion. They were passing by a very petite, older Hispanic woman who rattled something off in Spanish, like machine gun fire at him, while pointing up at the top shelf. I swear it looked like a setup for a sitcom, and I was not disappointed. The man turns to his companion and says, "I don't know what she wants. Do I lift her up and let her choose, or just start handing crap down to her?" I lost it. I almost peed my pants, lost it. They heard me. Everyone was just staring at me as I tried to compose myself. Then I heard the companion say, "Just start handing her crap, there's witnesses." If you found yourself in a situation like this, would you too just start trying to hand stuff down? Would you try to communicate a little bit? Hope maybe a word gets through that you can kind of identify? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Nicolks. You don't work here, lady. Couple short but hopefully amusing stories. Swung by a Target on a lark one day, red button-top shirt, not a polo, and black pants. So I knew going in, probably gonna get a mistake. And while I ran into a couple people who asked me where was X, maybe it was because I was walking with someone they thought I was busy or figured out I wasn't an employee. So it's not a guarantee you get mistaken for one wearing a red shirt, but it was definitely a when is it gonna happen moment. On the flip side, I was in Target on another occasion when I and my traveling companion couldn't find something. I think it was a bike, and saw a person in a red shirt. Knowing the sub, I was hesitant, waited till they weren't busy and looked my way. Noticed no badge or embroidery of the store logo, so I approached them cautiously. "I know you don't work here, but would you happen to know where X is?" As I suspected they didn't work there, we shared a laugh, and then they pointed me to X as they actually knew where they were. Well, to be fair, if you don't really know where anything is and you're gonna ask a random for it, it's good to preface that with, "Hey, I know you don't work here," because at least it's a very polite introduction. If the person's a jerk, they're gonna always be a jerk, but you definitely help your chances there. This next story is by FruGuy01. I'm not the Coke guy, so this just happened at the Mallwart nearest my office. I dropped in to grab a couple 2-liter diet sodas, being the value-conscious person I am. There were only 2 of the store brand left on the shelves, and they were at the back of 5 other drinks in one of the slidey rows they put them on. I started moving the ones in front to get to them, but they're not sliding down so I can reach them. I set my other stuff down and grabbed a 1-liter drink somebody had misplaced and used it to nudge the 2 I wanted to within reach. Some other customers came in the aisle, one lady in a motorized buggy provided by Walmart. A guy going the opposite direction looked at me as I was getting a drink down because I had to stand on the bottom shelf to get at them. The lady in the buggy said, "Don't mind him, he's the Coke guy." I turned my head and replied that I wasn't the Coke guy, that I was just getting a couple of drinks that were slightly out of reach. She apologized, I chuckled, and paid for my items and left. That's the first time in Mallwart I'd been mistaken for a worker. Honestly, in that position, you might as well just roll with it. Yeah, I am the Pepsi guy. Sorry, don't mind me. I'll be out of here in just a second. This next story is by Defunct Mouse. I walked into a pharmacy wearing scrubs, so Karen appointed me as head doctor. So little old groggy me, medical intern, is finally leaving the hospital after a 36-hour-long shift, the second of the week. It's a Friday, and I'm really looking forward for everything to go dark as soon as my head hits a pillow. But first, I need to go to a pharmacy. In my country, some pharmacies have a small lab adjacent where COVID tests can be taken, and a few lab technicians, chemists, and general practitioners may be found to do certain procedures, run certain tests, and make common diagnosis. Here's the thing, they're all wearing the full one-piece white hooded suits and protective gear you've all seen so much. I'm wearing surgical scrubs. So in enters a very sleep-deprived little old me to the pharmacy, who immediately goes on to examine the toothpastes and brushes. After a little while, I hear a throat being cleared, so I say, "Oh, my bad," and scoop over closer to the shelves to let the person walk by. Wrong answer. The person replies, "No, I need you to take a look at me. The line to the appointments area is too long." Confused, I turn and see an all too familiar look. A curly, bleached, shoulder-length haircut, blue eyelid makeup that looks more like two slapped-in Post-it notes than anything else, eye-searing lipstick and pink glistening claws to go along with a predatory cat pattern top. "Oh, I don't work here," I reply. Knowing it won't do, "I work in a hospital," I say, hoping it's enough justification for Karen to understand why I'm dressed the way I am. She of course dismisses my claim and says I must work here as I'm uniformed and stacking shelves. Yikes, the Karen's logic. I simply reply, "No, but I'm sure an employee will be happy to help you." Karen replies with, "You are a health worker, why don't you help me?" As an intern, I don't even have my degree yet. I can't and shouldn't do much, even if I wanted to. And I simply reply, "I'm not on duty and I don't." She interrupts. "Hey," snaps her fingers. "Hey," snaps her fingers. "I paid for my ticket just like everyone else. You will see me." I say again, "I don't work here, and I have no obligation to do random consults on the wild whenever you please, lady." A floor tile nearly broke upon the gaping of her jaws. At this point, she's pissed. As if summoned by her indignation, a manager walks over and asks if all is well. Karen seizes her opportunity to talk faster than you can blink. "No, this employee's very rude. I want him fired." The manager says, ma'am, he doesn't work here. Our employees wear..." She yells, "He works here. Stop trying to cover for him. You need to fire him now. His behavior is unacceptable. He refuses to help me." The manager says, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to stop harassing customers or leave." Karen, now enraged, letting out a hybrid between a roar and a sigh. "Ugh, I can't believe the audacity of you people to treat customers here. This is outrageous." She slaps the products off the closest shelf, sending items flying onto the manager and me, an accusatory pink-clawed index finger flying erratically. "I will not give you sphincter holes any business, and I hope this putrid little pharmacy goes under." She storms off huffing and puffing. I hurry off to pay and leave before she looks at the appointment ticket still clutched in her other hand and realizes she paid for something she's not used and decides to return, demanding a refund or, worse, attention. I exit the pharmacy and movement catches my eye. I turn and see Karen inside her SUV, foaming from the mouth, clutching her steering wheel and violently pushing and pulling herself. Then she sees me. The horror. I walk faster, trying not to look at her. She lowers a window and starts screaming some more at me. I ignore her and hurry to my escape pod on wheels. Escape successful. There's nothing that can ruin an experience going to the store or the pharmacy, like a Karen getting up in your face with those pink pointy fake acrylic nails saying, "Oh, you gotta help me, you work here." It's like, lady, I'm just trying to get my medicine and go home. Or I'm just trying to get a bag of chips, a drink, and some sleep hopefully later on. Our next story is by Of Mice and Men. Husband helps wife with grocery shopping. He must work there. My husband, who works in a full suit and tie, sometimes stops at the grocery on his way home from work. He constantly told me that when he goes in his suit, he's mistaken for someone who works there. Yesterday he came home to change before going so he doesn't have to explain it again. The grocery staff wear white or black polos, even the managers, so I didn't fully believe his stories. Then one day he joined me at lunch in his suit and tie to pick up some things. He helped me reach a jar on a high shelf when a woman approached him and asked for the location of an item. He said, "Ma'am, I don't know, I don't work here." The lady looks at me and then back at him and says, "But you helped her." "Ma'am, that is my wife." The lady glares at us annoyed and walks away. A time at Walmart, my husband and I were comparing labels in search of a good salsa. An elderly man comes up and asks my husband if he can find him a certain kind of salsa. I started looking for it because, hey, the guy's old. We find it and the old guy says thanks, but asks more questions until again, my husband has to explain he doesn't work there. Grocery again. An older woman gets offended that I reply to her request by saying, "Sorry, we don't work here." She said she wasn't talking to me, just to my husband, and she was going to complain, but never saw her again. Still can't figure out why this happens to him. I guess people just assume that if you're in a store in a suit and tie, you're only wearing that if you work there in a managerial or maybe even higher position. It's just beyond the scope of these people's comprehension to understand or possibly think that somebody shopping here could possibly be wearing a suit and tie. This next story is by Fiber Pirate. Mobility aid doesn't stop them. So my partner's decided that since I'm a fall risk, unless he's with me, I should use a mobility device of some sort. They have a mobility scooter from their previous partner who died from a bunch of stuff with the COVID cherry on top, so I was given that scooter to use all I want. I had a mobility scooter years ago, and losing that bit of independence really did a number on my head. Anyway, I has scooter, I scoots. I like going out and getting sunshine and air and Pokemon hunting, but that day, earlier this week, I was at Michael's. Now, I know this Michael's almost as well as the employees. I'm not an employee, but a couple of times a month, I pop in cause yarn. Must feed yarn addiction. Yes, this is the same Michael's a previous event happened, and where I helped a blind woman and her husband find the stuff she needed. I took pity on him because he was lost, and why wouldn't I help someone who was helping another disabled person? It was the right thing to do at the time, and I stand by it. Anyway, I was scooting around the store, my head not quite above the center displays, but enough so that this lady saw me and started to ask where X was. I had stopped the scooter at one corner, and as she was asking me where X was, she rounded the corner and kept asking me if I was an employee of Michael's and would I show her where X was. I'm sitting there in a hoodie with my Loungefly purse in the basket and pushed up from the scooter controller I was leaning on and did that eye flutter thing that comes naturally to some of us. She looked at me expecting me to answer her. My eyes fluttered a bit more. She seemed lost in what to do, as if certain I was an employee of Michael's, and nattered on about what she wanted. I waved my hand in the general direction of my basket and controller. Her eyes did the blinky flutter thing as if she couldn't comprehend what I was doing. Then her eyes followed my hand movement and she looked me up and down a few times, sitting on the scooter and smiling. "Oh, I guess you don't actually work here," she said, and walked off. I couldn't stop laughing. You know, it's possible somebody works there with a mobility scooter, that's not too crazy. But if you walk around and they're in a hoodie, they got their purse with them, it takes somebody with a dial-up brain to sit there with that horrid dial tone just slowly churning in their brain to take that long to process that that person doesn't work there. I guess sometimes it just takes people a while. Maybe they were just having one of those slow days, you know? We all have them. Except for those geniuses who hit those like and subscribe buttons, you know who you are. And our final story of the day is by Available Capital 476. But I actually do work here. In the long ago days of the start of the pandemic, when store hours were shortened and had a limited customer capacity, I very briefly worked in an understaffed grocery store. They didn't have any uniforms in my size, and their uniform distributor was closed down. So I wore a collared shirt of my own in the same color and style as their uniform. The managers were just thankful for that much. We had a senior shopping hour one day a week when the store would only be open for a very limited number of seniors and immune-compromised customers. There was regularly a line at the door at opening. Several times, I was scheduled to start just before opening. So I would be attempting to make my way into the front of the store, past the line of the impatient senior citizens, and calling my manager to be let in. I am a very tiny woman in my 20s, and am often mistaken for a teenager, and, as stated before, I don't have an actual uniform. I wish I could adequately describe the type of horrendous screeching insults hurled by half of the line when these people absolutely could not or would not comprehend my explanations that I do work here. I was physically attacked by one woman who grabbed me by my hair to yank me away from the door. I cannot count the number of curses and insults I had thrown at me. One spotted my manager coming to let me in and insisted this entitled little witch be banned from the store for trying to skip the line when she shouldn't even be here and lying that she works here. But on a happier note, I had a customer start to ask me a question, pause and go, "Oh, sorry, I thought you worked here," when he realized I wasn't wearing a company shirt. I was torn between appreciating that the one time someone looks at the shirt, they were still wrong by accident, and laughing because I was literally scraping gum off the floor by hand. Why would someone not an employee be doing that? Honestly, the one thing I'm fixated here is OP said they were scraping gum off the floor by hand. Surely they don't mean literally by hand, right? Please tell me there was a scraper tool or something, right? I can just imagine the dread. You pull into the parking lot, you see the line of senior citizen Karens over there, knowing that you've got to fight past the crowd of old, grumpy people early in the morning trying to get in that store. I'm sure not every time was bad, but the bad times were especially bad. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.